to thank the organizers for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here and to celebrate Wellington's birthday. There is three things about Brazil that I know from Wellington. Angra, of course, gafieiras, nobody will be surprised, but also jaca, the jackfruit. Once I was invited for a month by Wellington here, my wife was there, and we saw macacos eating jacas just in front of the building. And usually monkeys are known to have good taste, and we ask Wellington what's its fruit, and Wellington asks somebody to bring us a big part of jaca. But we confirm that monkeys have good taste. Okay. Obrigado pelo jaca e happy birthday, Wellington. Okay, so I will give what I will talk about is joint work with Fabio Tal from the University of São Paulo. And we'll present a forcing theory for surface homeomorphism, which has some one-dimensional flavor. So I will, I will begin by bringing the first slide. It looks very much like the first slide of Pedro yesterday. So recall things about forcing theory in dimension 1. So one classical example of forcing theory is Sharkovsky theorem, where you know that if you have an endomorphism interval, if you have a certain periodic, you know the period of a certain periodic implies existence of periodic orbit for all the periods. There is also the Lee York theorem, existence of a period 3 implies chaos. In fact, what is proved in Lee York's paper is that there is some conditions where you get what could be called a topological horseshoe. That means you can code orbits by a subsheets of finite type, and to get entropy, positiveness of entropy, and exponential growth of periodic orbit. So in fact, something which is important is if you have a map from 0,1 to 0,1, if you have a point x, such that f of x is here, f2 of x is here, and f3 of x is on the left of x. It can be x. This is exactly the case of the period 3. In that case, you have all these things because you can find a Markov partition and code the orbit with a subsheet of finite type. Because what happens is here you have an interval, and you know that f contain A2, and f2 contain A1 union A2, and this permits you to code the orbits, the thing which is very important in the intermediate value theorem. In fact, very, very easy, these things, because you know that when you have an interval such as the image contains an interval, there is a sub-interval, so the image is exactly the interval. And this permits you to do that. Okay, so in dimension 2, there also exist forcing theories. One is related to Nielsen-Thurston theory. It was about periodic orbits. For example, if you have a homeomorphism of surface which is isotopic to the identity, for every periodic orbit, you can define a braid, and you have an order of the braids, and exactly like Sharkovsky theorem, you have a certain braid implies existence of chaos, existence of topological horseshoe. So there is many applications of these results, many works, including some by Charles and Sebastian. And this is quite efficient, but it works with periodic orbits. There is another theory which works for whole orbit, which is called homotopic Borel theory. It's due to Mike Handel and has been developed with many applications also by John Franks and Mike Handel. It deals with not only periodic orbit, but whole orbit, usually. It's not very easy as a theory. There is only happy few know how to deal with it. So what we want to present here is a forcing theory which will work not only for whole orbits or periodic orbits, but for segment of orbit, exactly like here. Here you have a segment of orbit, and you know that you have a chaos just by looking at a segment of orbit. So it will work for segment of orbit. The bad thing, it won't be explicit. You will never, if you see an orbit, you will never know if it implies something, but it will be very useful to get general results, because everything will be implicit and not explicit. So we want to include existence of topological horseshoe. So what I mean by topological horseshoe, I really mean that you can code orbits and you have positive entropy and exponentially many periodic orbits which goes exponentially with period. Okay, so the objects in this theory will be, we will construct a certain foliation, and we will look at the path, in the space of leaf of the foliation is one-dimensional space. It can be very complicated, but it is one-dimensional space, and the theory deals with paths in the space of the leaf of the foliation. And there will be a key tool, which is intersection lemma, which is exactly the equivalent of the intermediate value theorem in the case of dimension 1. So what I want to present first is some application of this result, and after I will try to explain it, how it works. So let's begin by this application. You consider an orientation-preserving homeomorphism of the sphere. It's a result which is due to Handel. It's not exactly stayed like this in Handel, but it's roughly due to Handel. If you have a transitive map of the sphere, if you have at least 3 fixed points, in that case, you have topological entropy. More than this, you have a topological horseshoe. If you have 2 fixed points, it's not true. There is examples of Fanozov-Katok of pseudo-rotation, which are ergodic. They preserve the measure. They are ergodic, so they are transitive. But there is no periodic orbit at all, except 2 fixed points. So you need 3 fixed points to get this. So if I have the time, that probably won't through, I will give you how to prove this, because it's a one-line proof when you have the theory. Another example, which is a new example, a new criterion of existence of topological horseshoe is the following. You are, for example, this is an example. You have a homeomorphism of the sphere, and you have 2 periodic orbits. It can be every time you have a heteroclinic, a weak heteroclinic cycle, you get a topological horseshoe. For example, you have 1 periodic orbit of period 2, 1 periodic orbit of period 3, and you have heteroclinic intersection, a cycle in the weak sense. I mean, if you take a neighborhood of this point and a neighborhood of this point, you can find an orbit which goes from this to this, a segment of orbit which goes from this to this, and also a segment of orbit which goes from this to this. It's weaker than having a whole orbit which goes from the. So if you have this, so you have a family like this, a cycle of periodic orbits, and you suppose that there is this one of the period, there is 2 periods such that one does not divide the other one. For example, 2 and 3. In that case, you have topological horseshoe. Okay, so this gives you, for example, a criterion. Another one is this one. You are in the annulus. It's the notion of generalized region of instability. You take infinite annulus, and you suppose there is the 2 ends of the annulus define a Birkhoff cycle. I mean, in any neighborhood of this end, in any neighborhood of this end, you can find an orbit which goes from above to below, another orbit which goes from below to above. And you also suppose there is 2 points with 2 different rotation numbers. In that case, you have a topological horseshoe. This was known, in fact, it was known in the case, this situation appears naturally when you're looking twist map and Birkhoff region of instability, because when the region which is located between 2 invariant curves satisfies exactly this property. The property was due to Birkhoff, the first property, and but in that situation, you are Uri preserving, and you have a twist condition. It appears that it's not necessary to have this condition. The twist condition can be replaced by the very weak twist condition. You have 2 points with 2 different rotation numbers, and the Uri preserving property can be replaced by this property to have a Birkhoff connection between the two ends. Okay. So I will give another one. So you can, so that means that in many situations you will get topological horseshoe. So we can look at the other, on the other side, suppose you have a map which has no entropy or no topological horseshoe. Can you give a description of this map? So there is a description that was done by Franks and Handel in the case of a smooth Harvey-preserving map. It looks like an integrable system. So we were able with Fabio to extend this in the C0 case, but we are looking now from in the non-Harvey-preserving case, and we are already able to prove the following. Suppose you have a homeomorphism of the two sphere, which has no horseshoe. In that case, you can look at the ergodic measure. There is three types of ergodic measure. Okay. The ergodic measure which are supported on the periodic orbit. Okay. Extension of an odometer. That means that you have a nested family of periodic disk. And so this will define you an odometer or an Enigma machine. And there is a unique invariant measure for this abstract system, and it is semi-conjugate to this thing. In fact, it projects onto this odometer. And the last case, a little bit more complicated, it's irrational type. In fact, Ross is piecing, he says that almost every point for the measure turns with a certain irrational number around two fixed point or periodic points. In fact, you must have, it adds three examples. An invariant curve or rotation number irrational, a Danjois counterexample, or an irrational pseudo-rotation. I told you about an example for Anosov-Katok, where when you have a diffeomorphism of the sphere, which is ergodic, and no periodic orbit. In that case, the measure itself is a rational type. Everybody turns at the same speed, rational speed. So the measure can be greater. Be careful. It's possible. It's not possible in the C1 plus epsilon case. But if it is a homeomorphism, it's possible that this measure has entropy. Because this is it's true when it's possible to have entropy and no horseshoe in the case you are in C0 case. And there is results of François Béguin, Sylvain Crovisier, and Frédéric Leroux say that you can, in the two cases, here you can construct somebody with no horseshoe and such that the measure has entropy. That's not, so that means the system has topological entropy, but it has no periodic orbit and no horseshoe. Exactly, it's based on the same techniques as Marie-Brice's example. Yes? Adding machine, it's the same thing. The two names are the same. No, because it's not so easy to, it's really in the sense of the measure that you have this. No, it can be, it's really a sense of the measure that I'm talking here, not in this topology. We have still some problems for topological saying that it's really supported on a counter set or thing like that. It can be a little bit more complicated. But in the sense of the measure, you have this. Okay, and so I will finish by a result of my student, Gabriel Lelouch. This generalized some results which are well known in the case of rotations, about rotation set in the case of the torus. So when I take a closed orientable surface of genus G, I consider an isotopy from the identity to F, so I can map F which is isotopic to an entity. I consider all the probability, invariant probability measure, and we can define a rotation vector of each invariant measure. I'm talking of the rotation vector in the sense of Schwarzman here. So, in fact, the rotation vector of a measure is an element of the first group of homology. It's defined by this formula. You take a closed one form, and you integrate E of Z is the trajectory of the point along the isotopy. So you can integrate a one form. In fact, it's defined a current, and you can define the one form on this thing, and after you can take the measure relatively to the measure. In the case, so you integrate a function of Z by the measure. In the case omega is exact, it's easy to see that this is a co-boundary, and so the integral is 0, because the measure is invariant. So you have a linear form on the set of closed one form that vanish on exact one form. So it defines a linear form on the first cohomology group. So it defines an element of the first homology group. And this is a rotation vector. Okay, what proof Lelouch is the following. When you have two measures such that the intersection, so in the H1, in the homology, the first homology group, there is a symplectic form, which is the intersection form, which is nothing but generalizing that when you have two loops, you can look at the algebraic intersection number, and you can extend this to any homology class. So it says you that if you have two measures or 2 points that have two rotation numbers which intersect in homology, in that case, you get a topological horseshoe. In particular, if there is no topological horseshoe, you look at the set of compact invariant measure. It's a compact convex set, and the image is a rotation set. It's a compact and convex set in the first homology group. And this is contained in an isotropic space because there are no intersection between all these rotation numbers. So I was talking with Andres Kolopeki the other day. I think maybe it's possible to prove that there is some convex that cannot be rotation set or something like that because of this. Okay, so these generalized results of Polycott and Matsumoto, in fact, they prove, what Polycott proved was that you have topological entropy if the rotation set has no empty interior and the extremal points are realized by periodic orbit, and it used the Nielsen-Thurston theory by looking at taking off the periodic orbit and proving that there exists a pseudo-Anosov map inside. And Matsumoto observed that this was also possible if the space is bigger than G. If the dimension is larger than G, the genus, in that case, it's not isotropic. There must be two measures that intersect in homology. And he proved exactly the same result using also the same techniques of Thurston-Nielsen. Okay, so what Lelouch did is that, in fact, you don't need to suppose things about existence of periodic orbits. Okay, so now I want to give the ideas of how this forcing theory is constructed. So I will go to the blackboard. Otherwise, as there are many notations with the slides, it will be difficult to follow. Maybe it will be difficult to follow also. So I take here a surface. F is a surface oriented. I don't suppose anything. It's not necessarily a closed surface. It can be open. It can have infinite genus, infinite type. It's just a surface. And I take a homeomorphism, which is isotopic to identity. This means that it's isotopic to identity. And so I can look at the set of isotopy. From identity to F. That means the set of paths that join identity to F in the space of homeomorphism of M. Okay, a priori, when you have such an example, when you look at the dynamics, you look at, it's a discrete dynamical system. For example, this means that in the smooth case, F is a time-one map of a time-dependent vector field. And usually, it's a discrete dynamical system. You don't care very much about the isotopy, except when you have a time-independent vector field. That means, well, this isotopy is rising from a flow. In that case, usually, you don't look at the one-time map, you look at the flow itself. So, in fact, what we will see is that there are some isotopies which are better than the other one. This is really the main result. There is some isotopy which are better than other one. So I will give you some definition. So the trajectory of a point is a path. I define it I of z. Okay, so this is a surface. You take upon z, f of z, and this is a trajectory. Okay? And I will define two objects which are important. The set of fixed point of I, which is a set of points such that this is constant. The point is not moved by the isotopy. It's fixed by every element of the family. And the domain of I, which is a complement of the fixed point set of I. Okay, so you have a division into a closed set, which is a set of points which are fixed, and the other set which are moved by the isotopy. So I have an order. I will say that I is less than a pre-order, is smaller than I prime. I take two isotopy. If there is more fixed point in I prime than in I, and I suppose that I is homotopic to I relatively at the set of fixed point of I. I mean, you can, an isotopy is a path in a space. So you can look at, when you have two paths which join the two same points, the two same endpoints, you can define an homotopy between these two paths. And this is exactly an homotopy of isotopy. So that means A prime is bigger than I if there is more fixed point, and if I can go from I to I prime by staying fixed with the fixed point of I. So this gives you a pre-order, and it's easy to see that I is maximal from this pre-order if and only if every time you take a fixed point of f which is not fixed by I, then the trajectory is not contractible in the domain. So here is a maximal isotopy. You have a certain number of fixed points. And now you take if you take a fixed point which is not fixed by the isotopy, okay, you will get a loop. Okay, because it's a fixed point of f. So when you follow the isotopy, you get a loop. So I say that this is not contractible. In fact, suppose that this would be contractible. In that case, it's not difficult to change your isotopy and such that this is fixed. You can change your isotopy outside of the neighborhood of the fixed point set of I by fixing z, because it's contractible. It's kind of Alexander's lemma or something like that. So that means that exactly the definition is exactly this. Every time you have a maximal isotopy is an isotopy that does not move points that it has no reason to move. If these points come at the same place after the end of the isotopy with a contractible loop, there is no reason to move it. So maximal isotopy has this property. Okay, there is an example. The fundamental example of a maximal isotopy is if you take the restriction so you take off a flow. If you take a flow, a topological flow on the surface, you can look the restriction to 0, 1, and you get an isotopy from the f to the time 1 map of the flow. This is a maximal isotopy. The reason is the following. Suppose you have a contractible fixed point in the domain of I. In that case, the domain of I, the fixed point of I is the fixed point of the flow, the singularity of the flow. So suppose you have exactly in this situation. In that case, you don't forget that this is a periodic orbit of a flow. And if you have a periodic orbit of a flow, it will bound the disk if it's contractible. And in this disk, you must find a singular point, okay, because it is a flow. So a flow, when you start with a flow, and you take the time-one map of the flow and you look at the isotopy, you really have a maximal isotopy. So this notion generalizes, in a certain sense, this notion of flow. So a priori, well, okay, why? So a natural question, does there exist a maximal isotopy? So this theorem, which is due, so it's trivial in the case with finitely many fixed points, but it's in the case where the infinitely many fixed points that is not trivial. So it was done by Jolland some years ago in a weak sense of this, and by Béguin, Crovisier, Leroux. For every isotopy I, there exists I prime, such that I is smaller than I prime, and I prime is maximal. Of course, you have to use Zorn lemma, and so it should be easy, but this paper is a paper which has more than 30 pages, and this paper has more than 70 pages. So it's not easy at all, and it just appeared in arXiv 1 month ago. They have worked a lot about this problem. So they exist, okay. So we have a notion. We know that there exist these things. So what is the interest of this? In fact, we will see that maximal isotopy shares with flows an important property, which is the following. So this is a theorem which is due to myself, which says that if I is a maximal isotopy, there exists a C0-oriented foliation on M, F, on M. It's a singular foliation such that the singular point of F is exactly the fixed point of I. So the singular point coincides to the fixed point of the isotopy. And if you take a point which is in the domain of I, such as it's not fixed, the foliation is well defined, then the trajectory is homotopic to a transverse path to the foliation, path to F. So it's better to make a drawing. So you have this is a set of fixed points. So you have a certain oriented foliation like this. And every time you take a point Z, so this is the isotopy. So this is the trajectory of I. Of course, it lives in the domain because these other points are fixed by F. But there exists a path like this, which is homotopic in the domain of I. Okay, it is homotopic to a path which is, this is a transverse path. This blue path crosses every leaf, local leaf, from the right to the left. Okay, so you have this. Okay. For example, this is obviously true when you have a flow, because suppose you have a flow which is defined by a vector field. You just take a vector field which is transverse, and in that case, you get trivially such a foliation. So what is important is you have a continuous dynamic, a discrete dynamical system, but it has a transverse continuous dynamical system. Okay? So, something that we can say is also the following. What does it mean? It means lift F to foliation F tilde on the universal covering. This is a universal covering of the domain. So you can lift F to a non-singular foliation here, and you lift I to an isotopy, I prime tilde, such that that start from identity. Okay, what I do here, maybe I will take this thing. Take this thing. Oh no, it's exactly the things I should have take away. When I go to the universal space, universal covering space, you get a foliation. It's in yellow, the foliation, so I have to take green. So you have, because you have take out all the right or the left. You have take out all the singular points. When you go to universal lift, you have a non-singular point on, we can suppose it's a plane, topological plane. And you can lift your isotopy. Okay, you can lift your isotopy by an isotopy to a certain point, and your transverse path is like this. So what you see is the following. Every time you take a point here on the lift, its image is on the left of the leaf. Okay? The point here is on the left. It has no sense to speak of the left or the right on the manifold, but on the plane it has a sense. Okay, that means, in fact, every leaf you have that the time one map is on the left part of phi, and the pre-image is on the right part of phi. That means the image of this curve here is something like this. I don't say that the foliation is invariant, but this is sent here by the map, the F. It's called a Brouwer line. In fact, what you know, the thing that was written here, the fact that there is no contractible fixed point says you that F1 tilde is fixed point free. So we have a fixed point free homeomorphism of a disk. It's a result of Brouwer to know that there exists. You can cover by Brouwer lines, but in fact you can foliate by Brouwer lines in an equivariant way. And this is exactly what the theorem says. So now, when you have said that, you have the following object. When you have a maximal isotopy, for every time you have a point Z, every time you have a point Z in the domain, you see that gamma is defined up to an equivalence, up to equivalence. So to equivalence, I don't want to say what is equivalent class, but you see that I can make the choice, but I can also do this choice. There is no difference between this and this. You can pass by this transverse path to this transverse path. What is important is that they meet exactly the same leaves when you go to universal, when you lift them to the universal covering space. Okay? So this permits you to define a notion of equivalence. In fact, that means they define the same path in the space of leaf of your foliation. Okay, so you imagine that. So we will set gamma. We call this gamma the transverse trajectory of Z. So it can be seen either as a path in the space of leaves or a representant of this space. I mean, maybe one curve like this. Okay, I define the transverse trajectory, and I can define for every Q, every time I take an integer, I can define the product, the concatenation of the transverse path and I can also define what I call the whole transverse trajectory. It's an infinite path in the space of leaf. Okay, then I can continue this. If I go to F 2 of z, I can follow my green path and find another one like this, which will transverse, and I find like this objects or dynamical objects. And I say that the transverse path, I will say that definition, a transverse path gamma, so gamma in the domain is admissible if of order Q, if there exists Z such as gamma is equal or equivalent, I don't know what you prefer, to I. So that means it is this path represents a certain dynamical object. So you look, you say that a certain transverse path is admissible of order Q if there is a point Z, such as when you go from Z to Fq of Z, following the isotopy, it's homotopic to this path. Okay? So the forcing theory we get is a forcing theory in this admissible path. It says the following. Suppose you know that there are, a family of admissible paths. Can you construct other admissible paths? Okay, exactly like when you have periodic orbit, can you construct other periodic orbit or things like that? So there is, I will state the results which are here, which say that, in fact, we have what's called, I was talking about the intersection lemma, which correspond to the intermediate value theorem. In fact, we have the fundamental following result. I will define what is F intersection after, but just what is important, there is a process of constructing admissible paths when you know that you have some admissible paths. So I take two admissible transverse paths of order Q1 and Q2. This is the first one. So that means it is transverse to a certain foliation, locally like this. And there is another one. This is gamma 1. This is gamma 2. And I suppose they intersect F transversely. I will define after. Roughly speaking, it means that you cannot break the intersection by taking all the paths in the same equivalence. That means if you take any other equivalent path, you still have an intersection. I will give a precise definition after, but just suppose there is something, there is a notion. So here, as I told you, there exists a common point. These 2 points intersect here. And in this point, there is what I call a F transverse intersection. In that case, you can say that these 2 paths are also admissible. You can construct 2 other admissible paths when you have 2 admissible paths which intersect. Okay? So you have the process that permits you to have a forcing. You know that you can construct something if you have something. What appears, in fact, is, for example, suppose you have a recurrent point here, a recurrent point of the dynamics. You can look at the whole trajectory, okay? So the whole trajectory, so it's a path that lives in the space of, Leaf. Because the point is recurrent, you have a recurrent, but a strong recurrent for this path. That means every time you take a segment of this path, you will get it infinitely many often, exactly like when you have a shift, when you have a sequence of words, saying that it's recurrent for the shift, say you that every time you have a finite word, you will find this finite word beneath infinity often. You have exactly the same thing. In particular, that says that when you have two transverse, I will state the result is here. The first proposition. if you have two recurrent points such that the whole transverse have an intersection like this, you have topological entropy. You have a horseshoe. The reason is the following. It's because if they cross once, they will cross at least twice, in fact, infinitely often, because they are recurrent. And so you have not only one, but at least 2 points of transverse intersection. And so you can decide that you can change the path every time you got in intersection, and so you can code new transverse paths, and you can get like this topological entropy. So there is something which is maybe we know this for maybe 2 years, but this is a little bit newer. In fact, there is something which is stronger, which is the following. You suppose you take an unmissable path okay, this is an unmissable path, transverse path, which has the self-intersection. Okay, this is gamma. And you suppose that you have a F transverse intersection at this point. The result states you the following. You have horseshoe, first. Secondly, you know that the entropy is positive, and you can give a lower bound. It's smaller than log of 2 over 2q, and q is the order of the path. And also, you can say that there exists a fixed point. There exists a fixed point here of fq, such that this path here, this as a loop, you see, you get a loop when you do this, because gamma s is equal to gamma t. But this loop is associated to a certain periodic orbit of period c. So it permits to create periodic orbits every time you have such an intersection. Okay? So this implies, in particular, that if you have no topological horseshoe, the transverse leaves that never have intersection, and it really looks like a flow. The fact that they don't have intersection says that the dynamic is very close to the dynamic of a flow. And we have this result, which is a Poincaré-Bendixson version of this theory. You have a recurrent point, and you suppose you are in the sphere, m equals S2. You suppose there is no topological horseshoe. In that case, every time you have a recurrent point, the only possibilities for its whole transverse trajectory is to follow a simple closed curve like this. Exactly like when you say that for a flow, a recurrent point, which is not a singular point, is a periodic orbit. It's exactly the same. So maybe I told you that I will give you the proof of Handel's theorem. I will give you the proof of Handel's theorem. Suppose you have a transitive homeomorphism of S2, which has 3 fixed points, at least 3 fixed points. And we suppose there are infinitely many. Okay? I consider any maximal isotopy and any transverse foliation. I apply this. You have a point with a positive, whose orbit is done. Of course, it is recurrent. Okay, so its trajectory is a circle, as it says here. But because its orbit is dense, its trajectory meets all the leaves of the foliation. So, I mean, the leaves of the foliation are the leaves which pass by this circle. So that means that the fixed point set is exactly 2 fixed points. The domain is an annulus. So I say that if you have a homeomorphism of the sphere that has no topological horseshoe and a positive and a dense orbit, every maximal isotopy has 2 fixed points. But if you have 3 fixed points, you always can find an isotopy that has 3 fixed points. And so you have a contradiction. Okay? If you have 3 fixed points, there exists an isotopy that contains at least 3 fixed points, and this contradicts this result. So I have just 3 minutes. I will give the definition of the F transverse intersection. So I will begin by this. So I say that 2 transverse paths have a F transverse intersection if, when I lift to the universal covering space, they have the same property. So I have these 2 paths. The white one and the brown one. And this now is a universal covering space. Okay, so I have to say, what does it mean that 2 transverse paths have a transverse intersection in the case of a non-singular foliation on the disk? And this is easy. When you have non-singular foliation on the plane, the space of leaf is not very complicated. It's a one-dimensional manifold. It's a result of Reeb and Effliger. It's a one-dimensional manifold. Okay? So it is something like this. It's in yellow. Yellow. So let's see. Okay, this is a foliation. And you see, in this example, what is the space of the leaf of the foliation? It is something like this, a line here, and you have, it's like a tree, but you have to brew up some vertex. In fact, it's a non-separated, non-Hausdorff one-dimensional manifold, like this. You see, this is the limiting. These 2 different leaves are non-separate in the topological space. Okay? So, and this is an oriented foliation. And so, you want to know what does it mean that 2 paths on this one-dimensional manifold have an intersection, transverse intersection. You have not a lot of choice. You have only one possible, one choice. They will have, if they do the following. Of course, if you take two paths like this, when they belong to, if they have a common leaf, in a neighborhood, they still have a common leaf. The set of points where they are equal is open. But what you see this, you will get this, and this is the only way you can define naturally the intersection of 2 paths which are drawn on a one-dimensional manifold. They are the same, and they will sometimes arrive in a vertex, a degenerated vertex, a blew-up vertex, and they separate in such a way that when this one is on the right, after it's on the left. That means exactly that you have what is drawn in this figure. You see? This and this. Okay? And this means exactly what is the F transverse intersection. You are in the manifold, they have a common point, you take 2 lifts on the universal covering space that have a common point, and you want that they separate, it's written there, you see, this leaves here, maybe, okay. This leaf is on the right, on the left of this leaf on the left of this leaf on the right of this leaf, and this leaf on the right of this leaf, and there is a crossing. And this is exactly the formal definition of F intersection. So if you have this, it's okay. Okay, thank you very much.